answers Christmas on Challenge.
This week we're venturing to a galaxy far, far away as I chart the history of Star Wars games.
I'll also prove that Han definitely shot first in Star Wars Battlefront.
Whatever it takes.
These rebel spies discuss Star Wars' influence on gaming, and the Death Star's in for a battering as the VGN team takes on the famous trench run.
Enemy fighters coming your way.
It's hot stuff. Oof. On this week's Video Game Nation. Long ago, in a far-off place in space, a space place, a battle was waged between the forces of darkness, led by the evil Darth Vader, and the heroic Jedi with their magic lightsabers, all accompanied by that unforgettable John Williams soundtrack. Dun, 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 dun. Star Wars? Star Wars?
If that made you angry, good. That means you're a Star Wars fan. And if you're a Star Wars fan watching Video Game Nation, it's fairly likely that you've played a fair few Star Wars games in your time.
My first Star Wars game was also the first Star Wars game, called, you guessed it, Star Wars.
Well, it wasn't really the first. That honor goes to this ugliest sin Empire Strikes Back game for the Atari 2600, but it was the first that mattered. Using simple wireframe graphics, a vivid neon color scheme, and endearingly crunchy sampled audio from A New Hope, Atari Star Wars captured the essence of the film's climactic Death Star assault with an on-rail shooter that still stands the test of time.
Atari tried the same trick a few years later with The Empire Strikes Back, but the gaudy vectors that work so well in space didn't suit the ice planet of Hoth quite as well.
But it wasn't all bad. Look at those lovely lurid green AT-ATs. Atari then tried something completely different for Return of the Jedi, an isometric trip through pivotal scenes from the film, except for that whole Luke-Vader fight bit. But like the film itself, it ended up being the weakest part of the trilogy.
After that, there was a fairly long gap because, and I know this might come as a shock to some, a few years after Return of the Jedi, Star Wars wasn't cool anymore.
It was about the time people started giving their toys away to charity shops and car boot sales, little knowing they were playing directly into the hands of awful people who would later try to sell them back at vastly inflated prices. Meanwhile, Namco put out this Star Wars game in Japan, where Luke has black hair, and we discover where George Lucas got the idea for the rubbish underwater bits in The Phantom Menace. And is that the House of Congress?
Oh man, can the rest of this just be about that game? Look, there's a bit where you fight Darth Vader and he turns into a shark! See? It's amazing!
It wasn't until the early 1990s that things picked up again, first with a trickle and then a tsunami. On consoles, the Super Nintendo received a full trilogy of action games, starting with Super Star Wars. All three games looked and sounded great for the time, and followed the events of the films fairly closely, well, relatively speaking anyway. The first game's now available on PS4 and Vita if you fancy a trip down memory trench.
For the next 20 years, things didn't really let up, and the Star Wars universe infiltrated pretty much every genre imaginable.
Naturally, it loaned itself better to some than others. Fighting for the Rebel Alliance were excellent first-person shooters like Dark Forces and Jedi Knight, authentic spacecraft simulations and recreations like X-Wing vs TIE Fighter and Rogue Squadron, and two brilliant RPGs in the form of Knights of the Old Republic and its sequel. Over on the dark side, players battled against villainous fighting game Masters of Terras Cassie, a game so bad I couldn't be bothered to check if I'm pronouncing it correctly, as well as diabolical kart game Super Bombad Racing, the painfully sacrilegious dancing of Kinect Star Wars, and pretty much anything connected to the prequel trilogy.
Now look, there are dozens of Star Wars games out there, and I've inevitably missed your favourite, so here's a list of the rest to stop you whining on Facebook. Some absolute classics there, I'm sure you'll agree.
Recently, we've seen Disney buy, some would say rescue, Star Wars from George Lucas, and control of official console and PC games handed from the now defunct LucasArts to Electronic Arts. Sadly, that's also resulted in the cancellation of the promising Star Wars 1313, but with former Uncharted creative director Amy Hennig and Assassin's Creed producer Jade Raymond reportedly working on unannounced Star Wars games, the future's looking bright.
I think EA are perfect for the Star Wars license. You look who they've got under their umbrella, what teams they have that they own. They're going to do exactly the same as what I feel Disney are doing for Star Wars, in that they're going to go, we want to make a lot of money off of this, right? So let's do it really well and throw all our massive resources and just get the best people to do it so we continue making lots of money out of this forever. Brilliant. I want the best things, and I think EA will do that very well.
EA get a lot of stick. I think EA are perfect for the Star Wars license. I mean, you just have to look at some of the games in their catalog and just apply Star Wars to it, and they're going to be good.
Well, let's be honest, EA's sort of known for being quite mercenary and just exploiting the same license year after year after year after year. And Star Wars is the most exploited license in the history of the world, so I feel like it's probably quite a good match.
But of course, EA has already released its first Star Wars game, and it's a reboot of the fondly remembered and short-lived Battlefront series. Is the Force strong with this one? Well, give me another 5 minutes and I'll tell you. As the new wardens of the Star Wars gaming galaxy, EA needed to come out blasters blazing to prove to us that it was the right publisher for the job. And with Star Wars Battlefront, it's made a pretty convincing, if not definitive, argument in its favour.
In truth, it's a little cynical to use a name that carries so much weight among Star Wars-loving gamers, because it bears almost no resemblance to the series they loved. A more accurate name would be Star Wars Battlefield, which isn't really surprising considering it comes from DICE, the Swedish studio behind the Battlefield franchise.
Somewhat controversially, DICE has forgone a dedicated campaign to instead focus almost exclusively on multiplayer, and what offline modes there are really only exist to get you trained up on its limited selection of sprawling maps and particle-spewing weaponry.
What you're left with is a small selection of multiplayer game modes, most of which are variations on themes you've seen countless times before. First-timers should start with Blast, an 8v8 shootout in relatively compact arenas that's really just team deathmatch by a much more Disney-friendly name. But things soon ramp up when you jump into the 40-player skirmishes. Supremacy is Battlefield's trademark conquest mode in the Witness Relocation program, but Walker Assault is Battlefront's own.
As the Empire, you've got to get your convoy of walkers close enough to lay waste to a rebel base. And as the rebels, you've got your work cut out trying to stop that from happening.
This is where Battlefront really shines, with the stupendous recreation of classic locations, incredible sound design, and the sight of Empire and Rebel armies trading blaster fire all coalescing into an incredibly authentic experience. There are so many incidental details to marvel over, from the way X-Wing fire sparks off the ground below, to the occasional Wilhelm scream from a downed stormtrooper, all of which adds to the sense that you're an extra performing in some of cinema's greatest battles.
It's all about the Battle of Hoth, tripping up those things, just like, trip. They must have tested those AT-ATs. Who didn't test the rope trip? That guy should have got force choked. Should have got choked. Darth Vader should have choked him out personally.
That got him.
I think the best Star Wars battle is in Return of the Jedi, when they're on like Jabba's like floating barge thing in the desert, and they're basically like all about to be pushed into what is essentially like a gigantic bumhole with teeth. And then like Luke jumps off the thing and he's got his stupid black pajamas on, and Leia's there in a ridiculous costume, and everyone's like, oh, it's great.
I'm gonna take another direction here. Star Wars Episode 1, the movie, it was nonsense. But the last battle with Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul, that was brilliant.
If anyone picks anything from the prequel trilogy, they're too young to know what they're talking about.
But who just wants to be low-level banter fodder? If you can find one of the hero tokens strewn around the battlefield, you can temporarily run rampant as an iconic hero or villain.
Representing the do-gooders are the morally confused love triangle of Luke, Leia, and Han, while the boo-hiss baddies get the much cooler trio of Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, and Boba Fett. While they're always a welcome sight, there is something a little undignified about seeing Vader struggling to hop over a log in Endor.
You'll have a far greater chance of trying Han Solo's stylish waistcoat on for size if you opt for smaller scale modes like Hero Hunt or Heroes vs Villains, but the truth is that they're not particularly enjoyable, with victory seemingly a matter of luck rather than skill.
More entertaining for those who prefer their battles a little more intimate are Drop Zone and Droid Run. Drop Zone is a race to be the first team to capture and hold pods that crash land into random spots around the map, while Droid Run is a neat spin on Call of Duty's domination mode. The twist here being that the 3 bases that must be controlled are actually 3 mobile droids that roam around the map. Both feel a lot more tactical and balanced than Walker Assault, whose emphasis on spectacle can sometimes mean that things grow chaotic to the point of frustration.
Compared to a lot of modern first-person shooters, Battlefront can feel quite limited. This apparently is a measure taken to keep things accessible for Star Wars fans who aren't part of the Counter-Strike or Call of Duty faithful, but even then it still feels too pared down.
Movement is frustratingly sluggish, especially when held up against the likes of Titanfall and Black Ops 3. The shooting lacks nuance, and with only 4 admittedly stunning planets available at launch, it can grow samey after just a few hours play. There is, of course, a leveling system that grants you access to new weapons, character models, and emotes, although I'm pretty sure fist bumping isn't canon. Of most interest are the star cards, which offer a variety of one-use weapons, power-ups, and tactical accessories with which to customize your loadout. It takes a while to get to the really interesting stuff like rocket packs and Chewbacca's favored bowcaster, and the game becomes significantly more enjoyable once they're in your arsenal.
Star Wars Battlefront isn't perfect, and it could stand to benefit from more content, most of which will come with the Season Pass, but that'll set you back an additional £40. But what's there is largely entertaining and presented with an exquisite eye for detail. Our lack of faith in decent Star Wars games was becoming disturbing, so it's a relief to see that EA is treating the franchise with the respect it so clearly deserves. The Star Wars love doesn't let up in the second half of the show, so join us after the break for more words of Yoda-like wisdom, like this.
Let me get involved in this franchise. Rogue Squadron got me involved.
Christmas on Challenge.
Welcome back. Now, we've already seen that there have been plenty of Star Wars inspired games over the last 30 years. So it stands to reason that Star Wars has in turn exerted its sizable influence on gaming at large. Listen to our experts discuss this now, you will.
I think Star Wars has had a big influence on gaming in terms of, you know, that idea of constant set pieces. That's basically what the Star Wars films are. They're just a series of exciting things happening. And really that's kind of what the best action-adventure video games, aren't they? It's just this cool thing and then that cool thing and then this cool thing, and changing that up and varying it. So I think just in terms of the structure, there's been a big influence.
I think one of the details about Star Wars, which is sort of seen everywhere now, is that idea of a really diverse and random group of aliens and just character designs put together, you know? And I think even beyond just sci-fi games, like, you know, you see this in things like a lot of Nintendo games do this. The Legend of Zelda is great for it, you know, where you'll have just this mix of like very different looking people and races all just hanging out together in like a bar. And that is definitely the thing that's come from Star Wars.
I mean, in action games, just how narratives are told, Star Wars has definitely had a big influence on that in games. Also, you look at ship-to-ship combat. The way George Lucas visually showed ship-to-ship combat in those films has just dictated how ship-to-ship combat happens in games. Without Star Wars, there would be none of that.
Star Wars has influenced gaming in terms of making a franchise broaden out to loads of different genres of games. Because Star Wars was probably the original kind of franchise that was just, didn't matter what system, there was a game on it. There's Dance Central Star Wars. Who thought that was a good idea? I can make up anything up. Star Wars go-karts. Is there one? There is, see?
There are certain things that are like the holy texts for game developers. One of them is Aliens, another one is Star Wars. You can see aspects of Star Wars in almost every action game that's been made throughout history, especially everything from early video games right through to modern narrative-driven ones. There's like aspects of Star Wars in there. Gaming has certain influences from comic books and from pop culture and from sci-fi that are omnipresent, and Star Wars is one of the biggest of those.
Shield doors must be closed.
I think my favorite Star Wars game is Rogue Leader, which is Rogue Squadron 2 on the GameCube, a kind of a Star Wars-y spaceships dogfighting game. That was, at least until now, the most authentic feeling and sounding Star Wars game. It just nailed all of that stuff you would want it to nail. The music, the graphics, the sound effects, the menus, everything about it just feels brilliant.
I'll be honest with you, I probably came to Star Wars a bit late. Like, once I kind of knew what Star Wars was, the films had already been way gone. And they were in the mix of making the prequels. So I was like, okay, let me get involved in this franchise. Rogue Squadron got me involved. I was like, yeah. Flying around in an X-Wing, taking out TIE fighters like nothing. And it had voice acting as well in an N64 game. Shush. That was unheard of back then.
Oh, we could take an early morning run through Baker's Canyon.
Favorite Star Wars game? I mean, if I said Star Wars Episode 1 on the PlayStation 1, people would probably hate me, and I might be slightly lying, but that game definitely holds a little place in my heart. Probably Pod Racer. That game was amazing. When it was on the GameCube, that game was really fun. It really captured pod racing. Or The Force Unleashed. That was really good. Another not particularly popular one with like critics and the like, but it was a lot of fun, and it felt like Star Wars, and I hung out with Darth Vader.
You still have much to learn.
I love the Lego Star Wars games most of all because they're really fun, they're easy to pick up and play, and they've got cool puzzles, but mainly they capture the sort of the funny side of Star Wars, because I feel like you can take Star Wars too seriously, especially with all the hype that's going on at the moment. I just feel like, guys, it's like a children's film, right? It's basically about a cowboy, a princess, some robots and some ghosts. That's all it is. Like, let's not take it too seriously. And I think that's what the Lego games do.
My favourite Star Wars game would have to be Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the PlayStation 2 and the PC, you know? For me, that was the best one in the series. It was essentially Stormtrooper Simulator, you know? You had guns, you had Stormtroopers, and there was Hoth. That's all you need from Star Wars in a video game.
So I think the spirit of Star Wars is different for different people. For me, it's definitely the idea of a really vast, open galaxy, but one that's also full of rich characters and really like detailed and lived in buildings and vehicles, and just that feeling of both expanse and then small scale and humanness. And I think that's what's really most promised by No Man's Sky. That is why like Empire Strikes Back is so good. You know, they have all those things in there. And to capture that in a game in a way that's also completely fluid and completely motivated by you, I think that would be absolutely outstanding.
You know, a game that I think is better than Star Wars is Mass Effect. I genuinely think Mass Effect is the best sci-fi universe. I think it's better than Star Wars, I think it's better than Star Trek. I think that it doesn't get enough credit outside of the gaming world for how good that universe is.
Well, if we're talking about the spirit of Star Wars and we're talking about George Lucas, a man who once famously said that The Phantom Menace was the best Star Wars film because it made the most money, I feel I'm quite confident in saying the answer to this question, which is The Simpsons tapped out because it's just a shameless way to make money off of people by using a beloved franchise.
This game is life-ruiningly fun!
Hello, television friends. Hi, Def. High five. Well, time once again for a game challenge, and just like Jawas in a scrap heap, we have sifted through every single Star Wars game to find you a little title that's going to thrill you the way your mum used to be thrilled by Lando's moustache. Today we're playing Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, released for Nintendo's GameCube in 2001, which was a pretty good year for science fiction. Hello. Level 1 is the ending of the original Star Wars, so Dan Solo, Aoife Windu, Jar Jar Robertson and co need to destroy the gun towers, blast all the TIE fighters, then dive into the trench and blow up the Death Star. Fastest pilot wins if they survive. And this week we're doing it in full costume. I always thought I'd be a Sith.
All wings report in. Red 10 standing by. Red 7 standing by. Red 3 standing by.
Red velvet cupcake standing by.
Red lipstick standing by.
Red 316, ready.
Roger, this is green thermal underwear.
If I'm going down, I'm taking some people with me. It's a life philosophy.
There we go. Destroy the towers. Do I just shoot them? Yes, all right, cool.
Ah!
Whoa, I didn't want to do that. Okay.
In your face, dark side. Oh God, this is not going to go well. Oh!
Yeah, take that, the Empire.
Break all of George Lucas's Legos.
This actually still looks really good, doesn't it? Oh, why don't they just put out a HD version of this game, please?
How many tires are there?
One more to go.
There's too many lasers. It's happening. Quickly! I really hope that works. Okay.
Squad leaders, we've picked up a new group of signals. Enemy fighters coming your way.
Oh, TIE fighters.
If they actually had tie in them, then I probably wouldn't shoot them down.
Oh man, trying to pick out X-Wings against this backdrop while wearing this visor.
I'm scared, boys.
All right, TIE fighters, you goons.
Oh, look at you. Making the noise from the movies I didn't enjoy. Oh, it's great.
Oh, hang on, targeting computer. That'll help.
This is the most relaxing massacre I've ever taken part in.
Oh God, just die! Yeah. Let me shoot you! What's wrong with you?
What a shot.
Dear TIE fighters, where are you? Sincerely, Hawkins. Oh, there you are. Oh! Oh, Hawkins.
Oh, this is it. It's trench time.
Oh God, this is where flying becomes challenging.
This is where my limited sight is really going to play a major role.
Everything's great! I mean, give a girl a chance here.
I'm not gonna lie, my hands are really sweaty.
Am I supposed to be shooting? Oh no! It's like driving. Once you've made a decision, stick with it. Otherwise it all goes wrong.
You guys, don't be jerks. Don't be jerks now.
When will this trench end?
It's a good thing these guys on the turrets are rubbish. Oh, oh, ah!
Is that it? Is that? No, that can't be it. But there it is down. Oh! The game's over. How did they get another 2 films out of it?
Yes. Take that, Vader. See you later, Dad.
No, that's not fair. Like, boys, here.
What's the force button? Use the Y button, Luke.
You know what that means? I don't need it. The force is strong in me.
Is that Han? Woohoo! Don't get cocky, kid.
Did I do it?
Is it now? Yes! Yes! Next week's show is sadly also the last in the current series, so we'll be taking a look back at our 20 favourite games of the last 12 months. If you'd like to have your say, share your thoughts with us on the official Video Game Nation Facebook page, on Twitter using the hashtag VGN, or record a holovid and pass it on to your nearest R2 unit. See you next time.
Family Fortunes is on Challenge tonight at the rather jaunty time of 9:55, so don't miss the start of it or you won't know who's who.